Today on 10-Minute IT Jams, we're joined by Louisa Genovese, who is the Consulting Director at Palo Alto Networks Unit 42. Whether responding to a breach or managing cyber risk, Palo Alto Networks understands your challenges. Hailing from US government agencies, law enforcement, and global security firms, Unit 42 security consultants have handled some of the largest data breaches in history. Everything they do, from deployment to analysis and delivery of findings, is built for speed. Louisa joins us today to tell us more about Palo Alto Networks and her thoughts on the threats that cloud environments are facing. Thank you for coming along, Louisa, and welcome to the Jam.
Sounds great to be here.
Awesome, thank you. Well, let's get straight into it. Organizations are rapidly expanding the use of clouds as they seek greater efficiency and reduce costs in the current business environment. This is resulting in development teams being pressed to deliver applications faster than ever. How is this impacting their ability to detect and mitigate risks?
Well, with organizations of all sizes moving more of their operations to the cloud, a majority of them are struggling to automate cloud security and mitigate risks. In our recent State of Cloud Native Security report, we talked about the expansion of the hybrid workplace during the pandemic, which drove organizations to expand their use of clouds by more than 25% globally. In Australia, we found that 89% of businesses expanded their use of cloud by more than 30% in just 12 months. So it was very rapid adoption. And as a result of that, DevOps teams are being pressed to deliver production code at warp speed. And this makes application security ever the more complex. And with potential entry points that are popping up every time a new workload is deployed, security teams struggle to keep pace with the detection and with the remediation of new threats. Most organizations are also slow to detect and respond to threats. With the same report, we found that 93% of organizations in Australia can't detect and contain and resolve cyber incidents within an hour. What we're hearing is that organizations consider themselves to be lacking in their security posture. And they believe that to improve security practices, they need to be gaining visibility into multiple clouds. They need to apply more consistent governance across those accounts, and they need to streamline incident response and investigation.
Well, now, the increased complexity of managing hybrid and multi-cloud environments is creating significant opportunities for threat actors to gain a foothold in the cloud. What are some of the most common vulnerabilities that threat actors are looking to exploit within cloud environments?
That's a very good and interesting question. So they're looking to exploit common issues in the cloud, including misconfigurations, which is at the top of the list, weak credentials, lack of authentication, unpatched vulnerabilities. It's not just a cloud problem, but it is a huge problem that we see, and malicious OSS packages. So according to Unit 42's research, cloud breaches frequently stem from misconfigured storage services or exposed credentials. So there's a growing trend for cyber attacks to specifically target cloud compute services to steal those associated credentials, which then allow them to illicitly gain access to cloud infrastructure. So credential access, it continues to be a common tactic across all threat cloud actors as well. And we found that at the same time, 76% of organizations don't enforce MFA for console users, and 58% don't enforce MFA for root or admin users. So that makes console access susceptible to brute force attacks. And if you think about it, in the case of the root admin users, such weaknesses would essentially give attackers the keys to the kingdom. So we've seen credential theft and use becomes a successful means by which threat actors gain that initial access. And even with MFA, though, we've seen SIM swapping attacks where SMS is used for MFA, that has been intercepted to gain that initial access. And the threat actors have then been able to copy sensitive data to extort victims. And we've also seen other cases where old internet-facing CVEs are exploited, allowing attackers access to cloud environments. So there are multiple ways in which they're getting in, but some of them are using old techniques, which aren't necessarily unique to cloud infrastructure. So broadly, across the board, attackers are really quick to find those weaknesses, of which there are very many, and they are exploiting them really quickly.
Well, now, shifting tech a little bit, why are we seeing the rapid growth in threat actors looking to exploit vulnerabilities throughout the cloud application lifecycle? And what types of threats does the prevalence of open source code expose organizations to?
The reason we're seeing a rapid growth in threat actors looking to exploit vulnerabilities is essentially because there are more opportunities now. So there are more weaknesses for them to exploit due to how code is developed and deployed in the cloud. According to Unit 42's research, attacks on supply chains, software supply chains that is, are on the rise, with more than 7,300 OSS packages discovered in 2022 alone. So that has impacted tech organizations and others. And the rise of software supply chain attacks is a key trend that we see going forward in our APAC security predictions for this year. The wide adoption of OSS in the cloud makes it faster, and it makes it easier for threat actors to compromise the shared software supply chain. And that lets them ambush wide numbers of victims simultaneously. So they get more bang for their buck, essentially. Our research has shown that around half of all of code bases depend on over 100 open source packages, and less than a quarter are directly imported by developers. So vulnerabilities are introduced by non-root packages, and that could pose risks to the entire cloud infrastructure. And there's also the problem that 63% of code bases in production have high or critical unpatched vulnerabilities. There's that vulnerability management piece again. So they're the low-hanging fruit for attacks. So as more applications are being built in the cloud using off-the-shelf software, there's that risk that any vulnerability in the development process could compromise an entire application later on. And with the number of successful exploits by threat actors is unknown, we've seen lots of really interesting proof of concepts out there. For example, typo-squatting, that's a technique that relies on human mistakes, such as typos, and malicious actors are using them to create malicious open source packages, which seem to be the same name as the legitimate package, but aren't. We've also seen account takeover as a proof of concept, which involves the compromise of OSS package maintainer's account or an abandoned or archived repository. And that enables the attacker to essentially push malicious code into a legitimate repository. And then lastly, there's the insider threat piece as well. And that's a lot harder to detect. So that's where a legitimate maintainer just decides, for many potential reasons, to inject malicious code into their already popular OSS project. So since the potential payout is very high and the required cost and skill set is actually low, we anticipate seeing a rise in similar attacks throughout the future. And while developing applications across cloud native, across multi-cloud, and across hybrid environments presents, really great opportunities for faster development, it also means that security teams can really easily fall behind as the attack surface grows in the cloud.
Well, now, how can organizations protect their cloud applications from code to cloud, ensuring security throughout the application lifecycle?
Yeah, good question. So taking a step back, a consolidated approach to cybersecurity is a really good first step to ending blind spots and to gaining visibility that is needed to spot and to fix potential weaknesses in a corporate network, including those misconfiguration problems in cloud infrastructure. According to our research, the sheer number of security tools makes it really difficult for leaders to have in-depth visibility across their entire cloud portfolio. 80% of respondents to our survey reported that they use multiple security tools, and it creates blind spots, and that affects their ability to prioritize risk and to prevent threats. So simplifying that setup, unifying data and security controls into a platform approach can really go a long way. And by consolidating tools, security teams can automate correlation. They can tackle the most important security issues across the IT ecosystem. In fact, our research also shows that more companies are encouraging a deeper level of engagement between app developers and security tools and teams. 87% of Australian survey respondents in our studies have said that they've embedded security in their DevOps teams, which is a really great step forward.
Well, I guess one final question. How does the introduction of Palo Alto Networks CI/CD security module enable DevOps and security teams to improve security outcomes throughout the application lifecycle?
The introduction of our CI/CD security module provides integrated software delivery pipeline security as part of our code to cloud capabilities in Prisma Cloud CNAP platform. By adding CI/CD security into the Prisma Cloud platform, organizations are able to optimize security and risk prevention throughout the entire software delivery pipeline, achieving a holistic and comprehensive security visibility that can't be achieved just with those individual siloed solutions.
Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the Gem, Louisa, and hearing more about Palo Alto Networks and what you guys do. We look forward to hearing more from you very soon.
Thanks, Tom.